Welcome back, everybody, to Inside Texas Baseball. I'm your host, Evan Veith, as always, joined by Nash Sox Texas after a pretty wild but extremely fun weekend for Texas baseball fans. Before we jump into the baseball series, of course, Inside Texas is giving you the best sale you can find for anything college sports right now. $1 for a third of the year, 4 months to join Inside Texas today. Nash and I are already covering this baseball team, but spring practice, there's nowhere better to find football news about the Texas Longhorns. Basketball, Sean Miller, all the new signings, all the new hires coming from them. Anything you need for Texas sports related, Inside Texas has it covered for you. $1 for 4 months, the best deal out there. Nash, of course, we're here to talk about baseball, and there may not be more of talk of the town in college baseball than what these Texas Longhorns are doing right now under head coach Jim Schlossnagle. Pitching coach Max Wiener, of course, needs his flowers, but Schlossnagle's gotten them to what is it, 8-1 now in SEC or in SEC play. I think maybe even better than that. And against Georgia, a 3-0 sweep, better than we could have ever even imagined coming into this year against probably the best offense in the country. Just what were your emotions like? I know you were in the crowd for a lot of these games, and it was pretty cold yesterday. But for that Rylan Galvan walk off, what was it like being there for that?
Yeah, I mean, sitting at 11-1 in the SEC, because Georgia, Georgia's a team they're never going to go away, and if you let them win, they will win. They'll take that game, and to see just to see the boys fight, and then watch Rylan Galvan work his way to a 3-1 count, which is what they teach you to do, and
Mm-hmm.
just take absolute advantage of the 3-1 pitch and send that thing to the moon. That was an amazing. And then
Moonshot.
if for those of y'all that saw my video on Twitter, like that thing, the celebration was right in front of me and it literally came right up to me. That was just best seat in the house for that.
Yeah, if you want any good seats for these games, go contact Nash because he's got the best ones there. And 8-1 was what they came into the weekend with, and obviously that Ole Miss one doesn't count, so you can even add one if you want early in the season. But yes, the Longhorns team, 3 wins against Georgia. Obviously, what sticks out to you, Nash, is the pitching because 8 runs in 3 games. I think I wrote in my article that they had 20 games, so they had 8 or more runs before this game heading in. So of course, the Rylan Galvan walk-off was the moment of the weekend. It was a beautiful way he worked in the count, took some tough pitches, got to a great count, and sent that ball nearly over the right center scoreboard. But really, I think pitching, we're going to start with Jared Spencer, of course, because that was easily his best performance and probably any pitcher's best performance in Burnt Orange this year. You can see by that ERA, 5.25. He didn't pitch like a 5.25 ERA pitcher on Friday, did he, Nash?
No, I mean, you look 3 hits on 29 at bats. They got 4 bases on balls versus him, 12 strikeouts. He stranded 5 base runners. I mean, you can't really ask for much better. Yeah, you can't ask for much better of a performance. And I think Dylan Volantis picked up a save in there. I
Yep,
mean, it's
close that one
just
out.
what we knew kind of versus a team like Georgia, you really don't want them to get past that starting pitcher, right? You want your
Mm-hmm.
starter to go as long as possible, which is almost anti Jim Schlossnagle for this year. Like he's wanted to, hey, my starters are going to go like 5-6 innings. No, we need you to go as long as possible. And man, Jared Spencer was on when we needed him the most because this was, and if Connor can pull up the stats from last week that we had going, this was easily the best hitting team in the nation. They're number 1 in hits. I had the wrong graphic here, triples, but they are extremely good. I'm trying to go back to that other one, but
I mean, that home run stat is obviously the one that sticks out.
Yeah, home runs per game. They had they entered with a 2.71 home runs per game, and that's already dropped in like 2.5. I mean, this is a really, really good hitting team, and for Texas to do what they just did, it's nothing short of special. Like on base percentage, they were number 1 in the country. They were like number 2 in hits. Texas, just to limit them to the numbers that they did, you can't say enough about it.
Yeah, 3 home runs in 3 games, and most of them came on Sunday. Just super impressive from this pitching staff. I know SEC Unfiltered had their takes on if the Longhorns could kind of keep up what they were doing with. The best part about the staff is that they've generally been limiting home runs, and you're making teams work for it. Like the 4 runs that Georgia scored on Saturday, they really had to work for a lot of doubles, a lot of just smaller ball than that you usually expect from them. But I like your point about kind of what the Jim Schlossnagle pitchers have been doing because this weekend I felt in particular he was asking one more inning out of his starters than I usually would have expected. Spencer, 2 of those walks that he had came in that last inning where basically Schloss just wanted him to get one more out. He was like, you got this. You've been lights out on the mound. Give us that full, set 7 2/3 turn in what was it, 8 innings almost
Yeah,
for him.
it was 7.2
Give me
innings.
that, and then we can bring in Volantis for one more. Get you yours. Yeah, 7 2/3. So Volantis ended up getting that little Mariano Rivera save. He was great, of course. But yeah, Spencer, like you were so rooting for him to get that eighth out, and the energy in Austin. I was in the press box for that game. It was amazing. It was so awesome to see just how much the dishes come to life in this Lost Angle regime, I guess would be the word. But yeah, I think Spencer probably had the best performance of the weekend. But transitioning over to some other guys, Riojas and Harrison were solid, nothing exceptional in my opinion. But what really stood out was, man, how many pitchers, not just in the SEC, but how many bullpen duos in the country are you taking over Max Grubbs and Dylan Volantis right now? Because they pitched every single bullpen inning this series, and I don't believe they gave up a run in 9 innings. It was just an absurd performance from both of them.
I mean, it really shows the role that Max Grubbs is playing this year. Like this is one of the things you would always see him go. Like you would see some really good stuff, really promising stuff in his time as a starter, but he wasn't the guy that you want to ask to go too far. And now that we have him in the correct role that he's supposed to be in, man, we're able to get to see some really special play out of him. And then same for you. Look at I just keep going back to Jim Schlossnagle's comments. You'll probably remember this because you're at all the you're at all the conferences with him. He was trying to tell people like, hey, let's tap the brakes on Dylan Volantis here because like this is like it's really rare to have a freshman go in the SEC and be this dominant. And
yeah,
I don't know if you'll see that 0.00 next to Dylan Volantis' name, but and then this is not just like, oh, this isn't like, oh, he's played Missouri, he played A&M when they were struggling. No. LSU was the number 3 hitting team coming into the game, coming into the Disch Falk field. Same for, and then you got number 1 hitting team, Georgia, coming into Disch Falk. He shut them both down. And it's not something to be taken for granted to have a lights out, just closer to come out and come close out games. It really sucks that we lost Gage Bame because and that's one of the things that I just keep dreaming, man. Like it's like because also like if you just even picture like, hey, let's look at where Gage Bame was at last year, and then let's just consider that he has the same jump that all these other pitchers do. Oh my God, that would have been. It's just one that we just have to dream about, and we'll never be able to see. But either way, still Dylan Volantis, what a special dude! Like he actually might go for Corey Knebel's save record here in Texas.
Seriously. Yeah, and 9 of those 13 innings you're seeing, right, 13 plus innings you're seeing right there are against LSU and Georgia. If anything, he's saving Volantis for these big spots. And the most impressive thing to me is 2 different games where he's doing this. Schlossnagle got lucky that – not even lucky. I mean, it was the pitcher's pitching well, but, he only had to use him for 1 1/3 innings on Friday. And then Sunday, Volantis gives you a bit of an extended save. You don't have to bring in a Duplantier or a Flores. He was just able to shut down Georgia. And one thing for me is, I was in the press box Friday. Saturday, I was in the stands. I was watching with some friends. And then Sunday, I was able to watch just kind of on my own. And I didn't really feel nervous for these, appearances. Maybe earlier in the season I did. But when Grubbs was in on Saturday, I was almost so relaxed. Like I couldn't believe it because like were we facing the number 3 team when he was in? It didn't feel like it. He was just mowing through batters. And Grubbs doesn't have like elite strikeout stuff. It's, you can see it's a strikeout less than 1 per inning for him, which is still a fairly good number, but he's just efficient. He gets them to the ground out. And I remember talking to some of my friends at the game. They were asking me about, so much praise for Max Wiener, but how much of that is guys that returned to Texas from last year? Spencer, a transfer, Riojas, a transfer, Volantis, a freshman. But, Luke Harrison hadn't really been able to pitch at all these last 2 years. And obviously we'd heard that he'd been great in the fall, but he got what Wiener was helping with him with. And now he's a Saturday starter, which coming to the year, that was one of the biggest concerns I had was who's after this Spencer kid that we've been hearing so much about. Is there really another starter on this roster? And, Harrison has just been solid. He's been good, and that's what you needed from him this whole time. And then Grubbs has completely changed his role. He was a starter last year. I don't know how many people remember that, but he's now an elite closer after being a main starting pitcher. That's a very different thing to do. Like you're not used to that. Volantis was a starting pitcher his whole life. So I think that transfer from roles is what Wiener has been best at with these guys. And I put in my article, you have to put so much praise for what he's done with this pitching staff.
Yeah, no, and it's not just closing too. Like Max Grubbs is the first choice that the Texas staff is going to go to. Mm-hmm. If they're say Jared Spencer just gets into trouble in the 4th inning, they're going to trot Max Grubbs out of the bullpen. Like that's without a doubt is going to be my first guess on
Yep.
unless the game's just out of reach. Then they're just going to say, hey, like we're not going to pitch Max Grubbs because he's too valuable to use in a situation like this, unless our team starts getting some runs across the board. Then we can start warming that arm up. But it just the crazy thing is you look at Luke Harris. It's easy to say this because Luke Harrison had the 4 runs against him, but if you just look at their lines, Luke Harrison and Max Grubbs, you go, okay, you had 9 strikeouts, right? 3, man, Luke Harrison looked like he had one hell of a day out there, and he did.
Yeah,
it was like one of his career best days. But Max Grubbs, I mean, he looked like the better pitcher out of all those 2, and he only had 2 strikeouts. Just the ability to command the ball, get ground balls, get fly balls. He had 11 batters faced, 7 of them were ground out and flyouts, and then you add on the 2. That's 9 of the 11 batters didn't even like get a solid hit on the ball. So, man, it's just what we're going to see out of Max Grubbs is this is really special, and it also shows that like, man, Max Winter knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and then I think as we segue a little bit over to the batters, one of the other big headlines coming into this weekend is what's Texas going to do without Max Ballou and Adrian Rodriguez, who Rodriguez was listed as questionable from how Schloss was talking about it. We kind of had a feeling that he wasn't going to play this weekend, maybe a pinch runner role or defensive sub, but he wasn't able to swing the bat this weekend. So Texas without 2 of their 5 most important hitters on the roster, Ballou probably 1 or 2 with Galvan. So what are you going to do without 2 of the most important parts of your lineup coming in? And, we'll talk about left field. It was a little bit wishy-washy, I guess would be the word for what happened this weekend. But Jaquay Stewart, man, I think we need to outline what he did in response to having to take over that DH role that Casey Borba / Rodriguez had kind of filled in. He had a really good weekend, including, a no-hit losing, a breaking, I guess, home run that he absolutely rocked out to right field. I mean, I know you've been someone who's kind of lifted him up ahead of maybe what I was thinking he could be, but I thought he had a really strong weekend out here in Austin.
Yeah, I mean, Jaquay Stewart, it's what he's done is, and you also, just to touch on this real quickly, SEC, I believe, freshman of the week, Dylan Volantis. So that just came across now. But yeah, going back to Jaquay Stewart, man, he's hitting to the point where when Adrian Rodriguez is healthy, are you going to put him in third base or are you going to put him in left field? And I think it's really just going to end up turning into hey, who would we rather put in left field, Casey Borba or Adrian Rodriguez? And because you're not going to take Jaquay's bat out of the lineup. Now, maybe you do some other shifting, but there's no way on our, especially after the stuff that Kimball Schuessler showed this weekend. Like I was talking with one of the guys that sits next to me, mid in the Tuesday game about like, hey, maybe we give Kimball a look at third base or something like that, or or left field. No, you can't. Like Kimball's earned some actual legit money over there at first base.
Yes.
Like he was probably a guy that would have gone undrafted and just warmed his way onto a baseball team because he's a really good hitter. But his defensive ability plus hitting, it's just he's found his home. And then you just go back to that. It's going to be tough, man. Like you got to get Adrian Rodriguez back into the lineup. So we'll have to see how he works out at left field.
And we'll talk about lineup construction for next week a little bit later in the week. But, Jaquay Stewart, his last 5 games in the SEC, he's played the last 5 for Texas, a hit in every single one of them, hitting about 263 in those games. But of those 5 hits, 3 of them have been for extra bases, including that home run against Georgia on Saturday, which really sparked the offense. It got Texas going. They had been no hit up until that point. The bats were pretty quiet, and he just absolutely took that ball for a ride. It was a really nice home run, a really good swing from him. And a guy who was playing in his freshman year last year in Northwest Florida College, I want to say it was, just real low-level baseball, coming in and facing a top 3 team with a really good staff, at least a really good bullpen. They were really dealing on Saturday, and he looked like a professional hitter up there. And I think when, like you said, when his at-bats are going to be that good, it's going to be hard to keep him out of the lineup. But yeah, I thought he stepped up a lot. But the real big names, I thought you can finish your thought.
I was just going to say, man, talking about specifically stepping up. When Max Ballou gets injured, right, he gets thrust in the lineup. He's had a hit in every single game since then. So when we needed a bat to come through, he's had to hit. And also out of those 5 games he's had, like you said, 3 extra bases in those 5 games. So like, and that's just a common thing. We're going to go into some more guys that are here that we need to step up. But I mean, man, it's just what a job he's been doing.
Yeah, and of course this weekend the Galvan walk off was really the keynote, the most important play of the weekend. And obviously you can see his 14.41 OPS, just absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. Galvan is the best hitter on this team right now. He's gone into such a flow state right where he's at. And what I mentioned in my article is that he's been banged up so much the past 2 weeks. I mean, the inning before he hit that home run, he like had to take a pitch off basically because he was wincing off of a foul tip. And then last week, foul tip off his hand hurt him. He's a pure catcher, man. He's a man's catcher, and he's really just doing everything you need for the Longhorns. But really, what we highlighted in the pre-show where we wanted to talk about is Will Gasparino and Jalen Flores. Who do you want to talk about first? Which of these two really caught your eye the most?
I want to say Jalen Flores because I really like. It's easy to look at that 188 batting average and you start to overlook that, right? And say, okay, well, he was kind of struggling going into this weekend, but man, and still 1 for 4, 1 for 5, 0 for 4. That's nothing amazing. Like he'd probably himself would say I could do better than that. But it's just the timeliness of all the hitting, right? He's getting a double that's bringing in runs. He's hitting a home run that's bringing in runs. And he's either tying the game or putting us ahead. It's clutch stuff that we're getting from Jalen Flores. And I'll just like he had those 3 home runs in a row right when Will Gasparino was just overshadowing him, and probably still overshadowing him right now because we're going to go and talk about him. But you look at like in SEC play, he has 9 hits. 6 of those are for extra bases, right? Yep. So like. Just the way that I look at this is you're not going to be able to shut a hitter like this off for the entire season. And because hitting is just one of those things that it's inconsistent and you're going to hit in bunches and you're going to strike out in bunches. And man, when he starts to actually, reconnect with the ball and, get that consistency going again, it's good. We're going to get to see some really fun stuff from Jalen.
And that point
I was just want to say he did hit his 30th home run, which is tied for 10th. And
that was Zubia, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, starting to climb those rankings. I think so many people forget how long Jalen Flores has been here in Austin playing since he was a freshman. That note you had about the extra base hits is just it made me look at our screen and say, how many guys on this team, at least in our main group of players, are not extra base hitters? It's really only Farmer, Mendoza, and Schuessler. Everyone else is about that 50% mark of their hits being extra base hits, which is obviously that's efficient baseball. That's how you win games, is getting extra base hits. But yeah, I thought this weekend I would have liked.
Even in Mendoza's case, he was doing it early on. He just hasn't been doing it lately. But like that's another guy that hitting streaky, and he's going to turn it on eventually, and it's going to be fun to watch.
The power will come back for him. It showed up really early on, and it ceded off a little bit, but. Yeah, with Flores, I was hoping maybe a little bit more walks coming this weekend, getting on base a little bit more. One of the problems that he had against Mississippi State was kind of the inefficiency of getting into better counts, swinging and missing. And then after that series, he's been really good. And of course, we're bringing him up because of his 2 clutch hits, a 2-run double on Saturday to I believe it was a game tying double, but it started the rally. It basically won them the game. And then on Sunday, that 2-run home run, just beautiful hitting from him on both. So. If you're going to have 4 or 2 hits on the weekend, at least make it for 4 RBI and 2 runs, right? So he really had a great 2 at-bats there. And there's such a ceiling to him, or such an untapped ceiling to him, that we'll just keep coming around. That's why you have players like that on your team who can hit like that. And his glove, there were a few mistakes, but had some really nice plays, especially on Friday. That play to third base to get the runner, I thought was really spectacular. And, when we transitioned to Gasparino, extremely high. A guy who's been playing shortstop for a while. And we can transition to Gasparino because his stats are even better than Flores's. 13-game hit streak he extends throughout this weekend. If Connor, you want to click on his name and scroll down just game-by-game stats, because obviously he had those home runs, but he's just been getting on base so much, and it's just so hard to get this guy out. The high fastball problem has not been as big of a problem as it used to be, in my opinion, and he obviously had that huge double on that game. He just been really, really solid for you can probably scroll down, Connor, to cutting off at, let's say, LSU. Just look at those stats he's had right there. It's just been so consistent. That Missouri series, he was tearing the cover off the ball, and 4 RBI against Georgia, the same way with Flores. I just love what I've seen from Gasparino recently. I know a lot of our readers and on our boards have been kind of saying, when's it going to happen with this kid? Is he really as talented as we kind of keep harping about? And I think, we've seen the answer right here in this little stretch of the season.
I mean, and even beyond that, like out of the last 22 games, he's only had 2 games without a hit. Like this is just elite stuff. And to really start to see the bat connect with the ball, he had a home run and a triple this weekend. Did that get count as a triple or as a count as a double? But either way, still extra base hit that
I
put
think
2
it was
runs
a
and
double.
put us ahead. It was a double. Yeah, he advanced on the ball getting passed. I just looked up and he was at third base, so I didn't know.
Yeah, that's right.
You just never know with Will Gasparino. That dude's fast, right? But
Yeah, he is.
To be able to see him hit the ball well and just to continue to connect with the ball, because he's a guy that he can put the ball in just about any part of the field. He has there's some guys that they're purely pull power guys. Like, not saying that Casey Borb is a pull power guy, right? But majority of the home runs that you're going to see are from Casey Borb are going to be on the pull side.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be the case with Will Gasparino. He's going to be able to put the ball just about anywhere you want in the park, and you kind of saw a little bit of that this weekend too.
Yeah, and the thing that really stands out to me, that second column where there's that 1-1-1-1, 3-2, those are runs scored. So, like you're talking about the speed, in his last 11 games, he scored, 12 runs, 13 runs. He's not only getting on base, but he's converting his base hits, his doubles, his walks into these runs, and that's just been so important for Texas because the middle of the order just had to be good this weekend with Baloo at the 2 spot out, having to move Flores up a spot. Rodriguez isn't in that 5 spot anymore. Like, Schussler hitting 5th would not have been the plan for Swasnigel coming into this. So I think it's just so important that he, Galvan, and just that group of hitters right there were so good. And about his home run, you said you want to say something?
Yeah, the dude, you just can't make a pitch on him, right? Like, he's one of these guys that
right.
You have to throw the ball away from him and not let him even get close to hitting it, because he was on an 0-2 count and he takes one for a ride. I mean, these are you can't get in a better pitcher's count than that. And for him I think he's had multiple of these where he's in a 2-strike count and he's launching the ball over the fence, and that's just it's really special stuff to be able to watch that. Like, there's not many guys that have the ability to reach as far as he does.
That 6'6" length, I'm convinced it's 6'7" or 6'8".
It's 6'8". It's 6'8". I've heard from people that they're lying. Like, they're actually they're underplaying.
It's got to be.
I don't know why.
He's giant. Well, he'll do those measurables around draft time, and then suddenly he grew 2 inches, right, guys? Well, we're going to take a little quick break here. We're going to hear from Laura Baker, and then Nash and I are going to move on to the future of Texas baseball. Connor, to Laura.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512, or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description, as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
And as we look forward past that, thank you, LC and Laura, for the sponsorship here. We a little bit overlooked the Texas State series last week. We didn't even talk about it today. They did lose to Texas State on Tuesday. I don't know what that curse is. It's been past David Pierce at this point. It's Swasnigel as well. There's something about those guys in San Marcos.
I mean, dude, the way that I look at it is that's Aggie Jr. and that game means so much to them. Like, in my dad's day, like back in the 80s and in the 90s, when they were Southwest Texas, that was all Longhorn fans. Like, they were all people that didn't get into Texas and they wanted to go to Texas State because it's right down the road from Austin. It is all Texas A&M fans now. I don't know what happened when it switched, but man, that game just means a lot to them. And I laugh. I literally just laugh about that game because it's the reason why Texas State won that game is the very reason why they're a 500 team, right? Like, you made a base running error that turned into a great thing. Like that should have ended the game for y'all, basically.
Yeah, that double.
And it is what it is. Like, it's one of these things that we talk about. It's hard to win as much as we do in baseball. Baseball is a sport where you fail a lot. And for that to happen, I'm willing to we didn't talk about it because it was easy to just look straight to Georgia. Because Georgia, it's a big team coming into Austin. And Texas State's really not. But what it is, they got their fourth win streak. They keep the win streak on us in Disch Falk Field. We'll just have to go kick their butts in San Marcos here soon.
Well, if you had told me that the LSU and Georgia weeks would have been 5-3, the record for Texas, I would have gone, okay, so they lost 3 SEC games, right? That's not terrible. They split the series, right?
Nope, 2 midweeks.
UTSA and Texas State got those wins,
which does
for RPI reasons.
We look ahead. We can look ahead a little bit, but at the same time,
yeah,
these are also these are really close games because Kimball Schuessler, he torched that ball. That second baseman made an amazing play. I literally, when Kimball hit it, I mean, you look at Kimball's reaction. I had about the same reaction. I thought he just tied it up. I'm like, oh my god! And then I see Texas State fans like start cheering in the crowd, and I'm like, what? Why are you cheering? Oh wait, oh
we got it. Well, we are going to look past Houston Christian, believe it or not. They're probably even worse than what Texas State is bringing out. Texas does need to win this game. All right, so let's make sure. You'd assume Bing's going to come out there. From what it sounds like when we ask him about Bing, that Bing is purely a Tuesday guy. They don't even roster him on the weekends. I don't know exactly what that is. I think he just sees him as a starter long term, so he wants to keep him starting. But I think we'll see Bing, we'll see Flores, we'll see that kind of group of people. Hopefully, that's just a game for Texas that they can breeze through because they have their third away series of the start of the schedule. And just like Texas football, Texas baseball has gotten a little bit lucky with how the aways and homes have treated them, which I think will change. I believe it's in Arkansas later in the year. You can correct me if that's wrong. But at Kentucky and Lexington, Kentucky, I think, is around the 10th, 11th best team in the SEC right now, just by pure standings metrics. It's a historically very good team, the Mitch Daly series, if you want to call it that, here. But Kentucky just dropped the series to Ole Miss 2-3. 2 of those games they went to overtime and or to extra innings, split those games, then had another 1-3 loss against Ole Miss, who I believe now is up to like number 6 in the rankings, number 7, something like that. So not a bad team Kentucky is, and as always, these SEC teams, like in baseball or like in football and basketball, they're going to catch you if you're lazy. And they didn't have that with Missouri, but this Kentucky team is better than Missouri around the level of Mississippi State. So what's a bit of the scouting report as we go into this Kentucky series here, Nash?
I mean, they have a couple of really good players. So they got a really good pitcher. I'm trying to go over to his name, Ben Cleaver. He's one of the top pitchers in the SEC right now, like just general SEC. And that's not easy to do also when you're throwing 42 innings pitch. He's also like not just ERA, he's top in ERA and also innings pitch. So that's their Sunday guy, and he's going to be one hell of a guy that we got to go against. But they have some guys that are kind of on the some guys right behind this Cole Haig guy. I'm not sure if I'm saying it wrong, Cole Haig or Cole Hage, but this is basically their top hitter, left fielder. He's hitting about 350 right now. He's going to give our pitcher some, a lot to work with, but I'm just. It's hard to really feel worried about another team hitting well off about now. Maybe this is the perfect time to feel worried about it because we just did so well against Georgia, and maybe they just have an off week this next week, right? But either way, what we just showed against Georgia, you're not going to find a better hitting team in the nation than Georgia or LSU. Those are 2 of the best ones, and we held Georgia to a 195, I think, batting average or 196 batting average. And then LSU to a 2.9. You're not going to find it. It's going to be hard for this Kentucky team to get some hits against this Texas team.
Yeah, that Hage, Brown, Bell 2-3-4 for Kentucky did have 6 hits against Ole Miss in that extra innings game. So there is a spot in the order where you're a little concerned for how maybe the third time around someone like Spencer or Harrison can deal with that. But like you said, it is very hard to even – you want to be cocky, and that's not the way to do it in college sports because things happen, things change. These guys are so young. But they've won 5 of their 6 games against the top 2 teams in the SEC that aren't Arkansas or themselves. And suddenly you're saying at Kentucky we gotta care a lot about it, which They do need to, because I will say there are some worries I have about this team. There's kind of a three-pronged grouping of players and ideas that I do want to talk about. I think the first one that stands out is that left field position, because as fans know, Tommy Farmer's moved over to right field in Blue's absence. So left field was mostly Jaden Duplantier this week. Played in 3 of the 4 games started there. Easton Winfield did have 1 game. He had 2 walks in the game. I thought his plate discipline was generally pretty good, but the swing is still not there for him, and his stats are showing that, at least in the base hit wise. After those 2, is Adrian Rodriguez going to be able to play that out there? Schlossnagle hinted that he could. Will he be able to? And is he even going to be available this week? I'm not 100% sure. And then there's some freshmen behind, but if they haven't been playing yet, if Matt Scott hasn't been getting these at-bats yet, I'm not sure if it will come. So, Nash, what's your read on this left field situation? What do you think is going to happen, and what do you want to happen with this group of players?
I think that we're going to, because, we kind of talked about it just a little bit earlier when we were talking about Jaquay Stewart. I think that we're going to see Adrian Rodriguez out in left field.
Yeah.
There's you just can't take Jaquay out of the lineup. And so where does Adrian Rodriguez fit in? You can't take Casey Borber out. Casey Borber just hit one of the big clutch home runs that we had. It's just like, it's hard to, it is what it is. And also, but you also look, I'm not to, say anything bad, but it is just how it is. Jaden Duplantier is hitting about 150 right now. That's not really going to get it done for what this team wants to do. And you go and look, he's more of an infielder. I think he's playing a little bit out of position to try and way onto the field. And he's just not going to be an elite left fielder as of right now. So we'll have to see how Adrian Rodriguez looks out there. As long as he doesn't look like Jose Altuve in left field, I think we'll be fine with that. But I do want to put here, Connor, pull up the screen share real quick. If there is a time for Adrian Rodriguez to go out, and this is about as symmetrical as a ballpark as you're ever going to get, right? This is and not also just a general note. This is just a beautiful ballpark. Like, I love this park.
That is a nice park.
It's a really good park. But you go and look, left field. Look, if Adrian Rodriguez misreading the fence line on this, man, maybe left field's not the spot for him, right? Maybe left field's not the spot. But
that's one of the most rectangular left fields you'll ever see.
It is literally just a pure baseball diamond, right? And then they get some good. It's just in my opinion, it might be the prettiest. It might be the prettiest park out of all the SEC teams, just like the aesthetics of it. But it's definitely not the biggest or anything like that. But nice ballpark that we're going into. But back to the whole left field thing, I really personally, I want to see some guys like Matt Scott. I want to see Easton.
I would like to see Scott as well.
At the lineup too. Because you go to batting practice, man. Matt Scott's hitting the crap out of the ball. He is just torching the baseball. He is a guy that hitting Ivan Melendez level stuff. So we'll have to see how that works out, but. And then, the complete just dark horse of all dark horses, Jonah Williams out in the outfield.
Jonah Williams.
Hey, I know Steve Sarkisian might get a little mad if he sees that, but
making diamond stops out in the outfield. That's my safety.
He sees Jonah laying out in the outfield. He's just sitting there cringing.
Grimaces every single play.
He's like, "Oh my God, please don't get in. Please don't get in." Yeah. So it'll be interesting to watch that. Maybe Oliver Service gets a crack in the outfield, but like you said, if they haven't really gotten too many, it's hard to imagine it now. Maybe against a team like Kentucky, because you got Auburn coming in, who by the time they play Texas, they're probably going to be a top 10 team. Florida. Florida's you got Auburn, then you go to A&M. Right, and you got
and that'll be a series.
A&M is this is the thing. I know Texas fans love to be ragging on A&M right now, but they are a dangerous little team right now. They have a lot.
They just beat the number 1 team.
They have a lot. Yeah, they have a lot of talent, and I know that's a tiny ballpark, but they got a lot of talent. And they got a lot of good hitters, and they got I know we like to rag on it, but the same guy that is their hitting coach is the same guy that brought over the UT records for Texas in home runs, Caleb Longley. I'm going to continue to pound the drum for Caleb Longley as long as I live. They got some really good hitting coach. And then Michael Early, he was one hell of a hitting coach. I'd have been happy as hell if we had him. They're a dangerous team. And then you look, we got Arkansas after that. Maybe we get a break with Florida. Then we got Oklahoma. it's going to be some tough baseball, and it's just hard to see.
This is one of the stretches where you maybe want to work out the kinks of certain things. And yeah, I think Duplantiers' selling point was the speed. He can get on base, and then you have speed in the bottom of the order. But his bunt attempts were pretty bad. You think that he'd be able to bunt at this point?
You have to lay down that bunt, and we ended up not needing it with the Rylan Galvan homer, but we would have never needed the Galvan homer if he puts down a bunt.
And with Duplantier, yeah, that speed obviously wasn't shown with the bunting like you mentioned. And if he's going to be a speed guy, then you can just pinch run him. He'll get that one, maybe two if he comes to bat a second time. Times on the base paths. So Winfield, I like that he had some good at bats. I'd be okay with seeing that again. But Adrian Rodriguez is actually a natural shortstop. That's what he played in high school. And you go to his perfect game profile, and it says he can play outfield. I think that is what's going to happen, is that they're going to say, like you said, Stewart's got to be in the order. You can get Rodriguez out in left field. That gives you a switch hitter and a lefty in the lineup. So you're not losing that lefty versatility that Baloo got you with Stewart playing. And then I think Winfield will get some chances again. If he's going to draw 2 walks in a game, you can't then not let him come back out. And this would be the series for Matt Scott to show up. He might get that start on Tuesday, tomorrow. Mm-hmm. That could be a sneaky potential for him to kind of show up and play. I do think this Tuesday game is a great one to say, like, hey, can we get Adrian back in the lineup? Can we see what Scott can do? Can we see what Winfield can do? I would like to see Duplantier kind of go back to that pinch runner role. I'm not sure it's fully worked out in left field. And another thing that I think could improve for this Texas team is, we've said our praises about Flores, but a lot of that came with an asterisk. I think the top of the order, where I think he's going to stay at the 2-hole, him and Mendoza, I believe only had about 4 hits combined this weekend. They had about like 180 in total, or 160, 170. It wasn't a great weekend for them. They weren't drawing the walks that you'd hope at the rate that you'd hope to. Not really getting as many hits as you'd hoped. Mendoza's cooled off a little bit this season. Flores still hitting for power, but those 2 spots do need to get on base, because you got Galvan and Gasparino right behind him, then Rodriguez right after, and then Schutzler, Borba. So I think that's something that you need to see a little more consistency from this weekend against a less talented pitching staff. Is, can we see Mendoza kind of get that spark back in his bat?
Yeah, I'm like I said earlier, I think it will end up coming back. But one thing that I'm interested to see is maybe this game versus Houston Christian. I know it's easy to overlook things, right? But man, I don't want to say, like, maybe you pull Gasparino out and you move Tommy Farmer to center field, and you let Easton Winfield and Matt Scott get some looks.
Yeah,
or you just pull Tommy Farmer out of the lineup, let him get some rest, and then but that's just an interesting way to get both of them, get both their bats some looks going into this Kentucky series, and then go from the Tuesday games just off what you saw in the Tuesday game, and then try and give them some looks, because you're going to have Adrian Rodriguez likely back, and it's just going to be really interesting to see how this lineup works out over the next because, like you said, I mean, we got Houston Christian, Kentucky, UTRGV, and then it gets hot.
Yeah. You have 5 games to figure out, can Rodriguez play left field? Can Winfield be a factor? Can Scott be a factor? Because if Baloo can come back in the postseason, these matter a little bit less. Schlossing is always talking about the 15. Got to get 15 wins in the SEC, and Texas is right there. That might be done in the next 2 series. But once you get to the postseason, that's when you really need your guys to be hitting correctly and have your core 9 dudes. So I do want to see a little bit of different lineup construction on Tuesday, these next 2 Tuesdays, and see what we can get out of them in Kentucky. And then my last point before we head into the rankings, I just want to see, it's good that we didn't have to see too many bullpen arms, but I do want to see what we're going to get from Flores and what we're going to see from Burns, and obviously Duplantier. His stats have been pretty woeful in SEC play. You know what he can do. It's his 6th year on campus. He's going to bounce back. He'll be an important piece, but not every series are you going to be able to get away with only Grubbs and Volantis pitching. So is Flores going to give you some good spots? Can Thomas Burns be someone you rely on? Duplantier, when will Mercer be healthy, and will he even be pitching if he's healthy? I would like to see someone else pitch.
And
Bing as well.
Because Bing has been pitching him like he came in. I know a lot of people that were like, okay, let's write him off, right? Some JUCO dude that's not able to stand up. No, he just had to adjust. And you look at, he's had some good outings, really, really good outings the last few outings. And I think this last game, he had the run given up, but that was an unearned run, and he went hitless through like 6 innings or something like that. Like, this is a really good. He's been pitching really good, and like you said, with Flores, if Flores can go out there and give us some, quality starts, and same with Cade Bing, there's 5 guys right now that Texas can actually go trust out there, trust to go get you some
100%.
starts, and that right there, you cannot pay enough money for that for a team that's looking like they're going to the regionals, super regionals, or Omaha, because it's like it's one of those things where you get to that regional format, you like having 5 starters is just invaluable because you might have to play 5 games, and you having the 5 starters that you can trust, that might be the winning edge.
Yeah, and 2 of those starters, a freshman and then a sophomore JUCO transfer, an Indiana State transfer, and then Luke Harrison, who's barely been pitching real baseball games through his whole career. But we're not talking about Lucas Gordon in these 5 groups, but it feels like we're almost more confident than what we were at in the last 3 years of how the pitching has been. So yeah, I would love to see Flores. If Riojas has to pitch this weekend, I'd assume he'd be the Sunday guy. So I love the Sunday Ruger starts, but I'm not against Flores getting a chance to go out there and show out against the SEC opponents. So I think it's a great time to go over to the rankings because it's probably people have been waiting 40 minutes to hear about where Texas baseball is because, as you can see, it's creeping almost to a consensus number 2 spot in the country. 64 Analytics, which they do rankings differently. They rate instead of rank their players. So Texas is rated as the number 3 team. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they're in that, I've been talking a lot about kind of the upper echelon of this college baseball team and kind of college sports in general, where the top 4 or 5 teams are usually in their own tier of good. You saw that in college basketball this year, 4 1-seed Final Fours. And so I was like, week 5, week 6, I felt that they were still in that tier behind those teams. They're still a little bit on the cusp and they're right. They're kind of knocking on the door. And now, I mean, it's Texas or Arkansas is the best team and the hottest team in the country right now. Pretty undeniably, in my opinion, Nash.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting because Arkansas, they have a I just want to pull it up real quick, but they got a game. Their series this weekend is against Georgia. So Georgia, man, that would be one heck of a thing if Georgia's like. I'm kind of a little bit of a Georgia baseball fan myself, so like it was kind of interesting to watch them versus Texas, but it would be just really like a wake up, and not the SEC because they've been here, but like just a wake up call, like, hey, we're 8-1, and all of a sudden now we've lost 6 games, and we're 8-8. Like that's how quickly things can turn sideways, or 8-7. That's how quickly things can go sideways in the SEC. But you look at Arkansas, they get Georgia, Texas A&M, Florida, and I mean, in my opinion, Florida is just one of those not dead man walking, but like they're almost the opposite of dead man walking. Like they appear like a dead man corpse, but they're a lot like Texas A&M. They can just come up out of nowhere.
They can have a series.
They were thought of as one of the top teams in the SEC going into conference play. So it'll be really interesting to see if Arkansas, if they hold on to number 1, they've earned it at that point. Now Texas, we're going to face Kentucky, right? Then we got Auburn, they're pretty much a consensus like 10 to 12 team.
Yep.
Texas A&M, depending on what they do this next weekend, they might end up being ranked. So for these 2 teams to hold, they're gonna have to really earn it to be able to have a number 1 versus number 2 matchup in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if an Arkansas series win would ever drop that. They lose the series, you probably put Texas ahead if Texas sweeps Kentucky, but 2-1 against Georgia, Arkansas is still going to be number 1. And I do want to talk a tiny bit about the 64 Analytics because if you aren't following them on Twitter, they do some awesome stuff, just general stat percentile rankings, how teams do it. And they still have Tennessee as their number 1 just because they're more of a full body of work idea. And Tennessee and Arkansas has some awesome advanced stats. But you go over to Texas's page, and I wish I'd pre-put this and put it up, but there's some things that there's so many things that are in the 90th percentile for as a team hitting and pitching. 90th percentile fielding, independence pitching, K rates, K per walk rates, OPS, WOBA, and isolated power, which are some very advanced stuff that are more major league things. But Texas is really one of the best teams at the both hitting and pitching ideas. And I think if the walk rate maybe gets up for Texas and just the general walk rate for the pitching as well gets better, they're going to be getting closer to where Tennessee is as the consensus number 1 analytically in the country. But at the end of the day, the analytics are what it shows up on the field. But the rankings are what's going to show up when regionals are being made and super regionals are being tiered up. So Texas being a top 3 team come postseason would be so important for how the seeding works. Not having to play against another top 25 team in your draw, it would just be so important for Texas. So the rankings are really in the favor of the Longhorns, and they're in a great spot heading forward.
And I mean, like we've said earlier in the year, we've earned this. Like, this is not a thing where, hey, Texas was overhyped and we we're kind of flying over the radar, if that makes sense. The opposite of flying under the radar.
Yep.
It's just, we have had to scrap and claw for every last little thing that we've gotten. And it's just, what a special season this is to watch. And like, I mean, it also shows, man, if we get to the end of the season and we're still a top 2, top 5 team, like, it's going to be like, man, we're going to have so much confidence going into these postseason games, like going into the regionals, going into potential super regionals, potentially Omaha, right? Like, we'll have confidence because we've already been here 10 times this season.
Yeah, and Arkansas and Tennessee come in with so much continuity, and that's only going to get better. It's only a scale for Texas. The first game is going to feel a lot less close to the team as the 45th game is going to feel. So if they're staying this consistent and staying at the level of hitting and pitching that they are, I think it's just gonna feel better for the team as it goes on. And in the Longhorns right now, hey, we're not going to say anything in week 8 of the year, but top 2 team in the nation at the moment, and that's just an awesome spot to be in for Texas. And it's just great place for the athletic program to be in general. And I think we're going to wrap it up here, Nash. We've gotten 45 minutes out of this. It's another great episode after a big series. It's been a fun one. I feel like we've talked a lot about great points, and Texas is rolling right now. As always, everyone, Inside Texas, $1 for 4 months. Just the best deal out there right now. You're going to get so much baseball content from us. You'll see an article from me coming up today. You'll hear from Nash this week. We're always doing game threads throughout the game, consistently updating you, whether it's me from the press box or our very own Kazoo man, filling you in for every single pitch of the game. So there's so much great content around baseball, so much great content about everyone else. 4 quarters, as you like to put up, as always. Nash, it's been a great one. Been a great talking. Some technical difficulties, as always, with this broadcast, but I think it was a great episode. And any last words before we sign out?
It's not a good broadcast without a technical difficulty. So, I mean, like, hey, the biggest technical difficulty about to go on is my throat. I mean, I don't know if y'all know, but my voice, I was screaming loud at the dish. And I guess I'll end it off on this, man. What an environment. I had some Georgia people
100%.
that they told me, they're like, hey, man, this was one of the best environments I've been to in a baseball game. And like, I saw that. I just saw that thing, like, we're on the Ryland Galvan homer. You had the Georgia fans, they were sitting there with smiles watching the Texas cannon go off, right? So, like, getting to soak up I don't know how many other baseball teams. We got to be the only baseball team that fires a cannon at baseball games. Maybe Army or something like that, right? Maybe one of these military schools.
School.
But, I mean, it's just what a cool thing. And the environment could have been a little bit better with better weather. So, hopefully, as we get into May, we'll stop getting these cold fronts that get down to like 30, 40 degrees. But, hey, we'll have to see when we get there, because so far the weather hasn't been looking great at the dish, but it helped us out a little bit this weekend with the wind blowing in against a powerful hitting Georgia team.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people burnt orange doing some barking this weekend, so that's how you know the fans are real into it. Thanks so much, Nash. Thanks so much, Nash, as always. Connor behind the scenes, everyone at Inside Texas, of course, the best place to go for Texas Longhorn news. I've been your host, Evan Veith. Nash right beside me. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see y'all next week.